Hi, I'm Bukeka. I'm the B.
And I'm Enolia, and I'm the E.
Together, we are Be Empowered.
The universe is calling, calling, calling. The universe is calling me to be. It's calling me to listen more, talk less, and hold the light. The universe is calling me to be.
We believe that deep in our souls, we hold conversations, but for whatever reasons, we do not always take the opportunity to speak from our hearts.
We want you to imagine that you're sitting right here with us now, sipping a cup of tea or coffee at our dining room table, and we're having that conversation. You know, the one that encourages, inspires, and motivates you to the infinite possibilities that your life has to offer.
Let us help you to expand your imagination, to create your beautiful dream into reality. It starts right here and right now, because the universe is calling you to be.
The universe is calling me to be. The universe is calling, calling. The universe is calling me to be. It's calling me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Be Empowered. This is Enolia and my co-host Bukeka.
Hello, everyone. This is Bukeka. So glad to be here for another episode of Be Empowered. How are you, Enolia?
I'm doing well, and I am so excited about our topic today because today we are going to talk about stop being the martyr and learning how to demand equal value for your time, making yourself a priority with everyone else. And when we were talking about this, this was really, really an important topic, especially for moms who are single moms or single dads, okay? And also in terms of family dynamics. So here we are, and we talk about being the martyr or the martyr complex. It's this thought process of the fact that when we are leading our households or we are leading something, that we feel that we have to be the person who sacrifices everything for the betterment of everyone else. And it doesn't feel right after a while. After a while, when you're sacrificing and sacrificing and sacrificing and not getting anything in return, except the fact that you have a series of things that you couldn't accomplish, it doesn't work. What are your thoughts, Bukeka, about at least defining what that martyrism is?
Well, I think that we've taken this martyr persona as a shero or someone that is revered or and that is not necessarily it, because what happens when you become a martyr and you're constantly in this mode of sacrificing, you are deteriorating. You can't have the strength, you can't have the wherewithal to really be the strength of a family if you're always giving your power away, if you're always giving your strength away. And so it really is time to redefine what being a leader in the family is, as opposed to one that just sacrifices themselves to not being able to function.
You know, I'm loving what you say because then it leads me to think, well, who defined this? Who created the definition that, for example, when we play the role of mother, that the mother has to sacrifice everything to ensure that her children are at par or above what she would do for herself, to make sure that her spouse or partner is above anything that she would do for herself, putting them first, okay? And then as if that her value is lesser than equal status with the family. Who defined this? Who created this? We all want betterment for our families. We all want to see them grow and prosper. But we don't have to do it at the sacrifice of ourselves. you said it clearly in terms of being that leader. To be a leader does not necessarily mean that I have to sacrifice everything to see what it is that I'm leading prosper. I could potentially walk alongside it. I could potentially represent what it means to be a good leader. So therefore, an example is made. And I can learn how to organize the fact that what's important to me and what's important to team members or my family is of equal par, and require that everyone contribute to the success of what we're trying to get accomplished.
It seemed like there was a point in our humanity when the mother or the matriarch was totally cared for. I kind of think of the Matrix, you know, and everybody did everything to make sure that she was okay, that she was protected, while she did the amazing work of taking care of things and making sure things are put in place. And there's been some type of shift, and I don't know why that is, but there's been some type of shift that that we don't have to take care of her anymore. It could be that the matriarch or the woman head of the family appeared to be so strong that she didn't need any care. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but it just seems like in my mind that's what's happened. That the woman has done so much for humanity, for caring for children, for caring for the world, that, oh, well, she's got this, you know, we don't need to, she's strong enough, we don't need to do anything to support her in her needs. And so maybe that's where that dynamic has kind of moved us away from what it really is to be a strong woman.
Well, you know, it's so interesting the way you say that, because that brings a lot of things to mind. And wow, that was powerful, because when I look at that shift, that's when women decided to be superwomen. We decided that we no longer, and this is in the Western world, I caveat this with in the Western world, this is not the world.
Right.
Especially with me being here in Africa, this does not pertain to this area culturally. But in the West, where we've decided that we wanted to become superwomen, and when I say superwomen, we decided that we are going to work full-time, we are going to work at home full-time, we are going to ensure that our kids are overachievers, and we are going to even eventually take on the male's role and be the breadwinner. Well, if she can do all of that, why do I need to protect her? Matter of fact, I'll step back, take her role, you take care of me, honey, because you want to go out and be the breadwinner. You want to be all that you can be my guest. And I kind of feel like the patriarch said that and stood back and said, well, I don't need to nurture you because you no longer want to play in and I'm not going to say the subservient role, but the predefined industry role that women just adapted because that's what always was. Because how did we determine what it meant to be a good mother? We got that from community. We got that from culture. We got that from observance all the way around us. And so when we decided to step up our game, they stepped back. And maybe rightfully so, because when you demand a lot, sometimes you get what you ask for, and then you realize it may be too much. And I'm going to take this home right to myself, because I tried to be superwoman. You know, I had the corporate career, raising 2 boys, taking care of my spouse at the time. And it got to a point, a precipice in my life where I said, well, where's me in the middle of all of this? I'm playing the role of the employee, leadership employee on top of that. So not just the meager employee, do your job mindlessly and that's it. No, I'm going to lead my organization in the corporation that I work for. And then I'm going to play housewife and make sure that the meal is cooked and the kids are taken care of and the laundry is done and everything's done. And then I'm going to play chauffeur, drop off, pick up all of the kids at every single step of whatever athletics. And my kids were 3-sport kids. So both of them had 3 sports all year round, right? Not including the fact that they were intelligent kids. So therefore, school was slow for them. And so here I am talking to the teachers to challenge them more, to give them more work because they're bored in class because the rate by which the information came wasn't enough, because we were reading full-blown novels to our kids at 2 and 4 years old, like Harry Potter and Unfortunate Events, the serious book reads.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, making sure that my husband at the time was taking care of, what is it that you need? You got an appointment? Okay, I'll pick up and drop off. I'll compensate for when you're gone. He had an 1.5-hour commute out and an 1.5-hour commute in. So that means that because my job was only 10 minutes away, I had to pick up the slack for everything that had to be taken care of, including, food shopping and everything else. And then it got to the point where it was killing me. That when I got sick and I stepped back and I looked at the stress in my life and I had to reevaluate, I cannot be Superwoman. I cannot be Superwoman. And I had to sit my family down and say, things need to change. Because I was that martyr. I was the one who was trying to do everything. And it was a matter of, okay, boys, you're going to learn how to do your laundry. And we're going to start this. And this is at like 12 and 10. You're going to learn how to cook. You are going to learn how to keep your room clean. That it is not my responsibility to pick up after you. And that was a challenge, because you'll get some of those kids who basically don't want to clean their rooms. And I'll give all those mothers out there a tip. When the boys didn't want to clean their room, I just picked up what was on their floor and I put it in a box, and I did not return it. And I made them earn it back by doing jobs in the house at minimum wage so that they could understand that these things were paid for and they had to buy it back. Gave them a whole new outlook. That's just a little tip there.
Well, fortunately, we can choose what minimum wage is.
Yes,
when it comes to that.
Sure did. And I just basically said that when we have conflicts, that I am no longer just going to give up. And that's what I was doing, was giving up what I needed to attend, or what I was sacrificing, or what I needed to get to. And I would reschedule it, or just say I can't make it, or not go, or this, that, and the other. And I was like, I'm going to ask you to go call your friend and see if you can get a ride. I'm going to ask you to make amends of helping me meet this criteria, so that my work or my activities have equal value and status with you, so that I can get accomplished what's important for me, and balance that and get it back in rhythm and flow with the 3 of you, my two sons and my husband at the time. So that's what it looked like for me. We live and we learn.
Wow. Enolia, do you realize how important this information is? There are so many women that are living this life every single day. There are young women. There are women who have reached their 50s and wondering, what happened to my life? Where did it all go? Now the kids are gone, and they may or may not be equipped, because of all of the martyring and nurturing and everything that I've done, to be able to stand up on their own 2 feet after they've left. So they're still leaning on the mother when they ought to be at a point of independence. And I get it. I did the same thing with my one son as a single mom. I told him, I'm like, you're 12 years old. He may have been 11. But I'm like, you need to start doing your own laundry. Here's how to separate things. You don't put the whites with the reds. Right? All of those different things. And when it came to cooking, let's do some simple things. Fortunately, we've changed our diet quite a bit since then, but here's how you boil a hot dog, or here's how you make a quesadilla, or something that is simple for them, and give them those tools. So yes, we had those same conversations, but at the same time, I was also compensating for the fact that my husband, or my ex-husband, was no longer in the picture. And so not only am I feeling like I need to do everything for my son as his mother, but I've also got to compensate for the fact that his father is not in the picture in the same way. So not only am I trying to navigate that world, but I'm wanting to have conversations with his father to make sure that he was doing the right things, and to make sure that he was also at those events, to make sure that he was also communicating with him. So I'm still managing, or womanaging, really, right? All of these aspects to make sure that everything was coming out perfectly, right? Which we know is not possible. At some point, it's going to break down. And so I'm glad of the fact that my son was able to go to college, and he worked through college. He understood all of those concepts. True. But as he got older and became a father, I know that he still had an image or an expectation of me still being that one that went all around the state of Missouri to make sure that he had everything that he needed. It's a shift for them, because they're always thinking, oh, well, mom will, or well, mom will. But when mom decides to live her own life, that's yet another conversation. So I had the conversation with him when he was younger about these are the things you need to do. But now that you're older, son, here's what mom's going to do. Mom's going to have her time to run her business. Mom's going to have her time to be traveling around the world. And I love you and your children. And I am also going to take care of me, do the things I need to do for me. So it means being able to have that conversation with yourself, right? To be able to say, I've made this decision now. Now I've got to communicate that to other folks. And if they get it, great. And if they don't, that's on them. They're grown. They have their own abilities to rely on their knowledge base and what they've learned, what you gave them as children. Now it's time for them to pick up the mantle for their own life. And I think that in this martyrdom role that so many women are playing, we feel like we have to do that for their entire lives. And we know that our children are always going to be our children. But at the same time, we also know that our children are also going to have to be their own adults.
You are so right. And I'm sitting here listening to you, and the question comes to this: what are we raising our children to do and be? And yes, we want them to be better than us. And yes, we want them to be smarter than us. And yes, we want them to acquire, better wealth and not have it as hard as us, because as we grow and make our mistakes, we want better for our children, yes. But I think that the number one thing that we need to make sure that we answer that for is we are raising our children to stand on their own 2 feet and be responsible adults, so that we are not sitting there babying them and nurturing them when they're in their mid-20s, where they should be standing on their own 2 feet, starting their lives in such a way that they are productive beings, productive adults that can think, answer questions, and understand and have common sense on how to move through this world. And if we don't accomplish that in the first 18 years, there's something fundamentally missing. Now, that is not to say that it is somebody's failure. I am not saying that, because we get the personalities that we get. And you never know what type of personality you can give. I do not blame a child's lacking or unknowing on the parents, because sometimes you can give them everything and they just don't receive it. They just
Right.
choose not to receive it. But on the same token, we do not have to overcompensate by playing the rescuer and treating them like a victim, or playing the perpetrator and saying that I have to pick up the slack because they chose not to receive what it was that I had to give them to help them be a productive being, and step back and take a look at the whole scenario. And maybe that's tough. Maybe I'm just a tough mom.
No way. I mean, what I think that mothers and even if you haven't had a child of your own, you still sometimes fall into that syndrome of martyrdom. But everybody's watching you, okay? So when your children, or say your nieces and nephews, or your grandchildren, when those little minds are forming and shaping, what does it mean to be a woman, or what does it mean to be a man, you can demonstrate or give them tools, but they're still watching you. They're still watching you, how you interact with other people. So if I'm telling my son, you need to step up and be more independent and take care of this and take care of that, but he's watching me fully take care of a grown man, right? I'm making sure that the boyfriend or the husband or whatever, okay, has everything that he needs, and I'm not taking care of myself, then those lessons that I'm teaching that young mind really doesn't matter so much, because he sees what I'm doing. He's seeing the actions that I'm taking, which is I'm going to take care of this man over myself. So that's what ultimately is what they're going to absorb, because they're seeing that a lot more often than they're hearing you give them instruction on how to cook your food or wash your clothes. There's more time spent, there's more observation spent watching you just be you every day in every moment than there is of you teaching them something that takes a few minutes. So the learning, what they're really learning, is a lot more than what you're teaching.
Somewhere along the line, we were told that sacrificing ourselves and nurturing everybody else is the best way to be a mom. But in what you just said, it just triggered a point to me that if I am the best version of me and I take care of me, and then I am fully present in my relationship with my family, and I am fully present in the relationship with my partner, and I'm fully present in loving myself, that's what they're going to see. And if they see that, then they are better and productive and more respectful in terms of how they view me. The other piece of this is that then, because a great deal of women will say that if the relationship doesn't last, and a lot of times this happens in our late 40s, early 50s, and we get divorced, the first thing they go through is, I've lost me. And why have they lost me? It's because you've put everybody else first. You became that martyr, and you allowed that role to define who you are instead of you defining that role. And what that basically means is that when you take the spouse hat off, when you take the mother hat off, when you take the glorified daughter, the glorified sister, the auntie, and all of those roles off, because let's talk about divorce or leaving, all of those roles then go away, because you're no longer having to deal with being somebody's wife. You're no longer having to deal with being somebody's whatever they needed you to be, but you still have the hat on of the mother, but you've lost something. And those roles define what you did every day. Those roles define how you conducted your life. And you haven't taken the time to love you and just know who you are and what you bring to those roles. Then you feel like you've lost something.
Yeah.
So if you strip off all of those hats while you're in the role and say, who am I and what is it that I bring to these roles, and not let the roles define you, but you define the roles. I bring intelligence, I bring knowledge, I bring warmth, I bring first and above all, I bring love.
Yes.
Because in bringing love, I'm teaching my children how to love. I'm having my partner meet me in a harmonized way of how to love. And I'm loving myself. And if I love myself, then I can give love and receive love without feeling that I'm overextending anything, and be love.
Yes.
And we lose ourselves in this the mid-crisis, they call it midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Because we go for years and years and years and years of being the martyr and sacrificing everything and not thinking of ourselves and putting everyone first.
The other thing that comes to mind, Enolia, is that you don't have to be a woman to be a martyr.
Absolutely. That's right.
There are plenty of our brothers who are in that same situation. And, it'd be interesting to hear this topic from that perspective. But I would imagine that, for them, they're faced with their buddies, their guy friends, wondering, well, why is it that you're doing all this? Because we know a lot of men who are now in that position of taking care of their children full time, single dads. We know that, so they're trying to do everything for everybody. And so the perceptions that they get are probably a little bit more intense, because there is that expectation of the woman to do that, but there is no expectation of that really for the man. So
isn't that interesting for their own children?
Exactly.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, that was a good point. That was a good interjection. Right? Exactly. So what are they dealing with? How are they dealing with the persona of being the man, as well as being the nurturer, the caregiver, and having to not do the things and have the quote unquote freedoms that a man seems to have outside of their children, when they don't have that anymore. I know several people, including my son, who he's not necessarily a single dad, but because he does have a wonderful support with the love of his life. But at the same time, he is still the responsible party of 4 children for a good part of their health and well-being. And there's a lot of things that he doesn't do like a lot of his guy friends do. So it'd be interesting to get that perspective from the guy's point of view of being the martyr. But since we don't have the guy on the show right now, I think it's just important to acknowledge the fact that anybody at any stage of their life can find themselves in that role, and they have to take care of themselves. They have to be able to be a voice for their own well-being.
I really feel like anything that I've said for the woman goes for the man too.
Yeah.
And so take off the dad hat, take off the good son hat, take off all of those roles, and who are you at the core of your being, and bring that to fruition and be the best representation of you, so that when you're dealing with your children, you're fully present, you know who you are, you know what you're leading, you know that you are setting the example for those children. And again, find your balance.
Yeah.
You know, nobody stepped back and taught people how to be parents. We do the best that we can, but it's interesting. So, you know, and we're not even talking cultural, we're talking about the fact that in the West, we can basically say, I want to be the best person that I am, and I want to break out of this role, so therefore I dare to do it. But we don't have the pressures in the West that are there in the East, when culturally you've been brought up and your role is defined for you before you even come into the world. Some women are promised, and men, boy and girl, are promised before they even are born, that they will marry and that they will, you know, receive X, Y, and Z to be married. The family will receive it. And if they don't fulfill it, they are shunned from their family. They are not allowed to be with their family anymore if they don't fulfill that tradition. You know, it's interesting because in Angola, I was coming back from Calendula Falls, and my fiance and I happened to get in a cab full of men, and I was the only woman. So there I am with 13 other men. We ended up meeting, we ended up talking, and Job's translating for me because they're all Portuguese. And they shared with me that they felt that Angolan women were unappreciative, and they felt that Angolan women, you know, were always angry and jealous, and so on and so forth. And here I am, women's empowerment, and I work with Angolan women. And I said, well, why do you feel that way? And they said, well, I put a roof over her head, I put food in her mouth, I put clothes on her back, I take care of the children, and she's unappreciative. She always has her hand out. I said, interesting. And is she aware of what a budget is and how finances work? Well, no. Well, okay, have you taken the time to teach her? Well, no. So you expect her to understand that when she asks something for you and you do not provide it, and all she can see is that you said no. She doesn't see that you have a budget. She doesn't see that you have only a certain amount of earnings. She doesn't see that you have exhausted that budget based on whatever reason, and that at the time you don't have excess money in order to appease that need. You haven't communicated any of that to her, but she's ungrateful. And then there was silence. Okay, well, you know, how do you fix this? We were promised to each other and we don't even really like each other, but we have the children that we're required to have. And I'm scratching my head going, wow, that's deep. That's really, really deep. So you're married to this person, you don't even particularly care for her. And he goes, yeah, so you know it all from the West. What would you do? How would you fix that? And I said, I couldn't fix that. But my question to you isn't how would I fix it? My question to you is, what will you do? And he goes, well, what do you mean? What will I do? My question to you is, what will you do when your child then comes to you and says, I don't want to marry because it's arranged? What will you impose on your child? Are you going to carry this tradition out knowing that you felt this way? Are you going to propagate this and make it again and again and again and again because it was done to you? Or are you going to change it? He didn't know what to say to me. He had never thought about it. He had never thought about the fact that he had the ability to change it from his perspective. He may not have been able to change it from his life standpoint because he had to fulfill the traditions of his family in obligation, but that he did not have to pass on that same obligation on his children. He could change it, it stops with him. So then, as that point got across to all of them by me asking that question, one of the gentlemen asked, well, what do you think is the most important thing to an Angolan man? And, me, I'm thinking, is it God? Because many are church going. I have rarely ever met an Angolan that's not church going. And they were like, no. And I said, well, is it love? Me, I'm a woman. I'm coming from that place of and space of love. They're like, no, it's our children. It's like, wow, your children are the most important things to you. Like, yeah. So then my question to you is this. If your children are the most important thing to you, why wouldn't you create the most loving relationship that you could so that your children could be cultivated in an example of love and being the best version of themselves that they can be? And he looked at me and it was touche. If your children are the most important things to you, then be the best version of yourself so that they have an example to be the best versions of themselves. So, it's interesting because here lies subserviency. The woman's role is defined. You will cook, you will clean, you will provide, you will do everything, you will self-sacrifice in that role. And by the way, many women have broken out of that role, but only to a degree where they are educated and they've educated themselves past that role, but they're still expected to do everything when they come home from work and with that education. And the confining of one within the limitation of you can be educated, you can spend money, you can bring money home, but you still come home and you take care of the children and you still come home and you take care of all of these things, or you can pay someone to do it, but you're still expected to run that household. You may not break out of that role. And on top of that, your work life may not exceed the capacity of you not being able to do those jobs. And so what I found in my travels, I was in Dubai, is I found 20-something-year-olds who left their family and just took the brunt of it and said, I'm not doing this role. And they were shunned from their family and they were out there trying to make it.
Enolia, that whole span of what you just said is the magnitude of it. It's breathtaking. I'm envisioning you in this cab having a passing conversation that is absolutely monumental, culturally impactful, and could literally change the way a community decides to raise their children and create a family dynamic. I applaud you completely. And I applaud those men for recognizing that this is an important topic and for listening and for engaging, because they could have said, oh, this is the way that we've always done it. Who is this woman? Forget about her. Let's just ignore her. We got to drive. But they didn't. So I applaud that whole situation. I think that's wonderful. And
thank you. That was a 6-hour conversation, by the way. So by no means, anybody, if you're listening to this wasn't a passing conversation. We are on a ride for 6 hours to get from Calendula Falls all the way to Luanda. So it was an unraveling and an unveiling of two cultures coming together and just looking at things in a slightly different way.
Yeah, it's amazing, the fact that no matter what the culture, no matter what region or sphere of the planet, it all comes back to one thing for every human being. And that is a recognition of their worth.
Yes.
It
Yes,
really
it
does.
You hit it.
You know,
No matter what culture you are, and I guess I shared that story because I want to acknowledge those people who are in different cultures, because when we speak from the West, we think that we can sometimes paint a broad brush stroke across the world that everybody's the same, but they're not. And they're dealing with seriously different dynamics. And we can talk from one perspective, but in order to acknowledge women of the world or men of the world, we really need to acknowledge and understand that the cultures are so vastly different.
Yeah. We know that there are challenges around the world. We take on that persona because of the economic, or what appears to be the economic power that the US touts or puts on display. But that is not the real power of any community. The power of a community is its heart, is its ability to create a structure that allows for everyone to be valued, that makes everyone their health and their well-being a priority. And when you don't do that, then no matter what, again, what sphere, what region, where you are in the world, there is decay, there is descent, there is, and I don't know how this moved from martyrdom, but I think that that's probably a great example of it. It seems to me that our global society has moved into a way of thinking that there is that the more that you have, or the more that you're seen, or the more the higher you are on a perceived level, then that is supposed to be better. So the martyr is the one that is always perceived at this very high level. And so we take on that and go, wow, I am the martyr. I am the best. I am the one that's putting all of this together. Yet we don't recognize how that is destructive, because we're not built for that. We're not here to be the be all and end all for everything and everybody. We're here to be the best of who we are as an individual. We're here to be the divine expression of ourselves. Not that means that we have to be the divine expression for everything on the planet, right? So maybe that idea of martyrdom is not just, and I think we've said that, it's not just related to the woman, but it is an idea that is based on, I have to be at the top, I have to be the best, I have to be the caregiver, I have to be the be all and the end all for everything everywhere. And that's just not realistic. Does that sound, is that a sound train of thought to you, Enolia?
I absolutely, somewhere along the line, we feel that we have to be everything. And what makes us powerful is that when we rise to the occasion with support and with those we love, and that we're all successful, and that I could look at you and go, and here's my friend Bukeka and her success, and we supported each other all the way there. Or I could look at my family and I sat down and I shared with them, I can't do everything. And then we rise to the occasion and everything runs smoothly because the boys are doing their laundry, because they cooked something when I was late. And they took care of making sure that I had my needs met when I was overwhelmed or stretched too thin, just like I do with them. And that it is a give and receive scenario and not just a take. And really, isn't that what we're supposed to be achieving in life? we're supposed to be achieving, and I'm not going to use balance because a good friend of mine shared with me, balance is just walking side by side, but harmony,
Yeah.
rhythm, a flow. We are supposed to flow together. We are supposed to be in rhythm with each other, that if I can't give, I can receive. If I can't receive, I can give. If I can give and receive, then you can give and receive. And we're flowing together, yin yang, that flow, in balance. And so if you don't get anything else from this broadcast,
Right.
find your flow, know your value, embrace your worth, be the best version of who you are, set the example, and let go of being in control of every single thing, and acknowledge that support is the power, and have the conversation if you need to. Change the dynamics, communicate, let people know I don't need to be the superwoman to be super.
Right. Right. I'll share with you a brief personal story, and then I've got an important question to ask you. My husband and I are going to be celebrating our 8-year anniversary in next weekend. And when we first got married, there was a lot of stuff going on. Okay, we had, I had my bonus son that I had from being married. My son was going through some things. He was starting a family, didn't know that he was getting ready to start a family, that type of thing. And people know me as this bright, bubbly, always smiling, every happy moment is a wonderful moment type of person, right?
Yeah.
And so my husband says to me one day, honey, you don't seem like the happy person, or the same person that when we got married. And I'm like, no, I'm not the same happy person when we got married. Oh, something's going on. He's like, it's okay. It's okay. But we ebb and we flow, and we are human, and we are spirit, divine expressions of creation, and it's just life. And so what's so wonderful is that I feel like we have this ebb and flow, Enolia, and that we're here to be supportive in a way that allows us to also embrace and express our own creativity, our own worthiness. And so that makes this an even greater aspect of this topic. The question I have for you, I don't know if this is happening where you are in the region, but in the US, Monday is the celebration of Indigenous People Day. And so because of the fact that you have so divinely embraced that indigenous nature of us, how would you segue that into the topic that we presented today? Indigenous people and martyrdom.
I guess I would segue into the fact that as an Indigenous being, celebrate self and celebrate those all around me. And if that's nothing but taking pause, then take pause. Learn that you are worthy. Share that in accepting assistance, it is not powerless, but powerful. I do not have to be everything for everybody. And I can celebrate those who love me and that I love, and that we can work together and communicate and share and reprioritize to be successful overall. That is not just about me. That if I bring the best version of me forward and I make it about our success, and I share, delegate, whatever it takes to be successful, to be reprioritized in the family, in the dynamics, then we're all successful. So for Indigenous Day, I would say take pause, sing a song that celebrates, acknowledge the moment, the day, say a prayer for all, and celebrate.
Thank you, Enolia, and thank you everyone for listening to Be Empowered. Be empowered today. Be empowered to embrace the amazing person that you are. Be empowered to have the conversation that you need to have with that someone or someone's. Be empowered to step into your divinity. And thank you so much again for listening today. Any closing comments?
Thank you for sharing the stories and the beauty and the heart and the love that you are. And I celebrate you, and I celebrate what we have to share. And again, you said it, be empowered.
Yes.
Be empowered.
Be empowered.
Take care, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows in the future. To learn more about our co-hosts, check out their websites, www.bukekastyle.com and www.enolia.live. Learn about their masterclasses for conscious transformation, their personal coaching, along with their international retreats and expeditions. Are you an entrepreneur looking for another line of income? Check out www.planetmarketing.com/Enolia and www.planetmarketing.com/BBlakemore. We are here to transform your life. Thank you for listening.